What's good, YouTube? And welcome to the house. Simo, of all people, just knocked on my inbox, told me the new Reptile Archetype is out for Ancient Guardians, and then gave me a mini market watch. He told me Evil Dragon Ananta is actually bought out, and it seems to be to the point of $10, and also Viper's Rebirth. I haven't read this in forever, so I'm going to look through it real quick. If the only monster in your graveyard are reptile monsters, select one non-tuner monster in your graveyard and special summon it. It is destroyed during the end phase of this turn. I wonder if that will be worth it, and I guess if buyouts are already happening, hopefully the archetype is either really gosh darn good or people are just running, oh, reveal money at the market. I have not read them, so let's go over to Yu-Gi-Oh! Organization, get in that YGO org view, and react Andy time. Let's read some cards together for the first time. We have Nil Drag of the Abhyss. Is that the archetype name, like Abhyss, but with an H, so Abyss Dweller's not one? Light Reptile effect, level 4/0/0. You can only use this card's first and second effects once per turn each. I also see a dark down here. Is it like chaos themed? Alright, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, send one dark reptile monster from your deck to the graveyard. So the light one sends a dark one, but you send, so hopefully the other one would do something in the graveyard. If you control no monsters or you control an Abhyss monster, you can special summon this card from your graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. You cannot special summon monsters while this card special summoned by this effect is in the monster zone except Reptile. So once you get rid of it, you still have to go up into Reptile in the extra deck, but it kind of floodgates you, similar to the guard dragons, I would say, where you're locked into dragons while they're on the field. Really, that is kind of interesting. Also, new Yu-Gi-Oh! Logo from Japan, it looks like here. That's new. That's kind of cool. Next up, we got Nil Drag of the Abhyss, a dark reptile effect, level 4/0/2000. So far, no damage output. You can only use this card's first and second effects once per turn each. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard to send a light reptile from your deck to the graveyard. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Abhyss spell/trap from your deck to your hand. So it's a starter, whether it's special or normal/extender. And also, this first one, whenever you would send it, then can special summon itself from the graveyard. So you can send Foolish another, make sure to special this. This one doesn't get an effect in graveyard, but I guess is set up also. Let's see if there's extra deck monsters as we keep going too. Flogi, the Haze of the Abhyss, is a light reptile effect, level 4, 1800, 1400, a level 4, 1800. Could it be a searcher? You can only use this card's first and second effects once per turn each. We just had a searcher, so unlikely. If this card is sent from your hand to the graveyard, if this card is sent from the field, my bad. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard or special summoned from the graveyard, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls and one monster in their graveyard with an equal to or higher attack. Special summon the target in the opponent's graveyard to their field, and if you do send the target they control to the graveyard. So I guess if there was like a combo that happened that properly special summoned, that wouldn't be a big deal, and they have something with armor on the field or something, you swap it out and it's a way favorable to you. Not the best effect. You're giving them something back for what you're getting rid of, and whatever you're bringing back has to be bigger. If this card is in your graveyard, you can send one card from your hand to the graveyard. Add this card to your hand. So you can send the one and re-add it, and then if you had them, like, I'm trying to figure out the combos and routes so far. Let's read more cards and see where it goes. Zoa, Haze of the Abhyss, is a dark reptile effect, level 4, 1500, 1700. You can only use this card's first and second effects once per turn each. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard or special summoned from the graveyard, you can have your opponent draw one card. And if they do, you add one Abhyss monster from your deck to your hand, except Zoa, Haze of the Abhyss, then each player sends a card from their hand to the graveyard. So a lot of these cards, you want to stack them up in the graveyard, it looks like, or that's the plan. If this card is in your graveyard, you can send one card from your hand to the graveyard, add this card to your hand. So similar effects. You send the one, add it back, send the one, add it back on this light and dark. Kind of like successful dream mirrors more so. Like, these are better dream mirrors almost with the reptiles. And then these, Foolish Burial. Interesting. Cursed Dawn of the Abhyss. I can see why buyouts are happening. So far, everything does interact in interesting ways, as is typical of a deck building set, but it seems pretty darn good. Next up, we have Cursed Dawn of the Abyss, Light Reptile Effect, level 8, only 400 attack / 2400 defense. You can only use this card's first and second effects once per turn each. If this card's in your graveyard, you can tribute a monster, special summon this card. Then your opponent can special summon one monster from their graveyard to the field, but its effects are negated. What's the trade-off? If this card is special summoned, you can target a level 4 or lower Abyss monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. So everything that would be getting those on-summon, special summon effects, this card is reviving them, but only level 4 or lower. It still gives your opponent a body, but these bodies don't seem to be problems, and reptiles historically do take care of the field. Aleth, Dusk of the Abyss is a Dark Reptile effect, level 8, 2000 / 800. If this card is in your graveyard, you can tribute a monster, special summon this card, then your opponent can add one monster from your graveyard to the hand. That's a bit more troublesome with hand traps, isn't it? If this card is special summoned, you can target 2 of your banished monsters, including at least 1 reptile monster, return them to the graveyard. They are light and dark, kind of chaos setups. I guess it makes sense to return them, and a lot of them self-banish. Aaron, King of the Abyss. It's probably like Aaron. I don't know. Light Reptile Effect, level 8, 2500 / 2800. You can only use this card's first and second and third effects once per turn each. If this card's in your graveyard, you can tribute 2 monsters, special summon this card. If your opponent adds a card or cards to the hand except during the draw phase, you can send a random card from their hand to the graveyard. Mini Darkula. If a monster's your opponent controls is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can add 1 light or dark reptile monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, except for Aaron, King of the Abyss. Huh. That's pretty good. If a monster your opponent controls is sent to the graveyard. So it has to be specifically by a card effect, though. But that's not bad at all. That's pretty good. And when I say mini Dark Law, is there's no, like, on-field macro effect, so it's not as potent as Dark Law might be. I realize he's a bigger monster, but that's why I say mini Dark Law. Amnesia, the Queen of the Abyss, is a Dark Reptile effect, 2700 / 2100. You can only use this card's first, second, and third effects once per turn each. If this card's in your graveyard, you can tribute 2 monsters, special summon the card. If a monster or monsters is special summoned from your opponent's graveyard, you can send 1 card they control to the graveyard. So these are almost floodgate-like effects for adding cards or summoning cards from certain areas. Like, they are very specific floodgate-ish things that punish those actions. If a monster or monsters is sent from your opponent's hand or deck to the graveyard, you can special summon a light or dark reptile from your graveyard, except for herself. Nice! So this is very, like, chess level, like, you know what I'm doing, but I also can incur things, and I can make these things happen. Here's the big boss monster. Before we get to the spells, it looks like. Ogdo Abhyss, Deity of the Abyss, is a light reptile effect, level 10, 3100, 2200. You can only use this card's first and second effects once per turn each. If this card is in your graveyard, you can tribute 3 monsters to special summon this card. The very legendary monsters usually do 3 monsters. Once while face up on the field, quick effect. You can send all monsters on the field to the graveyard, except face up monsters that were special summoned from the graveyard? That's pretty freaking good, and he can special summon himself from the graveyard. I see why Viper's Rebirth is getting a lot of looks. So, you can special summon them. They're still destroyed during the end phase, but it doesn't turn off the effects, and there's no hard once per turn on this card at all. Wow! That does kind of mix in, doesn't it? Depths of the Abyss is a field spell. You can only use this card's first and second effects once per turn each. If a face-up reptile monster or monsters you control is destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect, you can target 1 card your opponent controls and send it to the graveyard. If this card in your field zone is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can send cards from the top of your opponent's deck to the graveyard equal to the number of reptile monsters with different names in your graveyard. That's probably more of a plus than a minus, Konami. Yikes. This first effect, I was like, it goes in line with these very specific floodgate-like effects, and then this one, like, encourages its destruction a little bit, unless you're gonna deck them out somehow. Emptiness of the Abyss is a continuous trap. Emptiness traps are scary. You can only use this card's first effect once per turn. During your main phase, you can tribute a reptile monster, then target a monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon it to your field, but send it to the grave during the end phase. Okay, so you can interact with their graveyard and yoink things away. If this face-up card in the spell and trap zone is sent to the graveyard, send all face-up non-reptile monsters your opponent controls to the graveyard. Now that's a punishment. That's a freaking trap card. That's pretty good. So you have interactions that can disrupt your opponent's graveyard and give you the resource, and it doesn't say, like, negate the effect or anything, it'll just send it back later. And then the second effect highly punishes this going to the graveyard. It's this face-up. So I would assume you can also still, within the chain that it's going to go down, do this, and you take care of it. Not as powerful in the mirror match, though. Invasion of the Abhyss is a normal trap card. You can activate one card with this card's name per turn, special summon 2 Abhyss tokens. If you have 8 or more Abhyss monsters with different names in your graveyard, you can apply this effect instead. Special summon 2 Reptile monsters with different names from your graveyard. So you're able to load the graveyard relatively fast. You can get specific monsters instead of just tokens and start to really get things in the grind state. But this is a trap that requires setup. We'll have to see how, like, their turns and everything can do. I can understand why people are excited about this archetype for sure. And then Snake Rain, there's the reprint. Your ridiculous buyouts for mutants are punished. With everything going on here, I feel like there has to be a little bit more that goes with this, but this really is like a more successful Dream Mirror. It's got things going for itself. You have the ability to foolish anything out of the deck. You have the ability to search things. You have the ability to have big moss monsters in deck. No extra deck monsters so far, which they really could use, I feel like. But they have their own huge boss with a quick effect, too, that can just take care of a board like crazy. I like where this is going, and I think there's pretty high potential for it. It's not like I'm some expert figuring out combos as we're going, but this seems like it has a lot going for it, and I understand why people are moving their money before they've really figured it out. This seems like it has potential, and Reptile is one of the most slept-on types of monster in Yu-Gi-Oh! This is some good freaking stuff. Konami, I love deck building sets in general and how interesting they are. This one feels like it's got something to it. Also, a new logo. Thanks for watching today's video. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the conversation and live looks. And thank you, Simo, for letting me know this stuff is out.